My name is Gabby Porcaro. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I have the distinct privilege of serving as the Assistant Director for Queer and Trans Student Initiatives at Roger Williams University. So I am a part of the Division of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion on campus. So I work incredibly closely with my colleagues who also work to support various other communities of minoritized students. So I work with the individuals who are working to support our international students, our students of color, our first generation college students. So there's a lot of ways that we are engaged in collaborative programming just to ensure that, first and foremost, our minoritized communities at Roger understand how powerful and capable and resilient they are to bolster a strong sense of community, but then to create a fun living and learning environment for you all while you are students with us. The way I kind of see my role and describe my role to folks, my biggest and most important role is being a student advocate. So I'm in the trenches with you all. So as we are talking throughout my presentation today, I'll discuss where my office is located and where my center is, but I'm kind of in the hub of where the queer students hang out on campus, and I couldn't be more thankful for that. It allows me to understand what you all need from me, and then allows me to work with my colleagues to ensure that happens. And then the other biggest part of my role is I'm a campus-wide educator. So Kyler himself has been involved in a bunch of my trainings about queerness and transness and how to promote queer and trans equity throughout the campus life, but also giving folks some tools and tips to take with them in their time away from campus, just because sure, I want our community to be safe, but I also want our world to look a bit different. So that's just a little bit about me, who I am, how I see myself in this world. So now kind of moving along and getting into queer and trans student initiatives on campus a bit more, and specifically the center that I oversee. So our Queer and Trans Resource and Advocacy Center, as you will likely never hear anybody refer to it by its full name, we call it the Q track on campus. We are right in the middle of the first year residential area on campus. So in particular, Maple Hall. We are located in the ground floor of Maple Hall. So this picture that you're seeing on the screen is like one little shot of some of our comfy couches in the center. The wall where the trans pride flag is currently, it actually is no longer a blank white wall. It's a mural that I let the students paint together. So my center could not be brighter and more lively, and I can take no credit for it. I let my students decorate and redecorate as many times as they want to, and it's awesome. So as I said, my center is a part of the Division for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, which allows us to do a lot of intersectional programming, but really the center itself is our community hub. So yes, of course, recognizing now that how our world will be changing, there'll be some changes to the day-to-day functions, but I still foresee the Q track being this community hub of a place where students can come together and take breaks and do homework with one another through as they shift throughout their classes. We have a TV in the center that has a Netflix account set up to it, and HDMI, and folks are always bringing all of their Xboxes and PlayStations and doing game nights with one another, bringing their board games in. I have a library of all queer and trans novels, bios, DVDs, you name it, we've got it. And again, incredibly intersectional. So not just that white cisgender gay lens of what it means to be a queer person, very intersectional when it comes to thinking about gender identity, as well as race, as well as socioeconomic status, because I really want to make sure that my center embodies the fullness of what it means to be a queer or trans person. Something else that's really cool about my center is I do offer typically anywhere between 6 to 10 work study positions throughout the academic year. And so those are students that have received the federal work study position through their federal financial aid application. And I work with them to create a work study position that fits their passion, that aligns with their academic major, and that can kind of just help them get to where they hope their college career will take them. So I have some marketing folks that work for me. I have some environmental impact folks that work for me, some political impact folks that work for me, community builders. And so I work with my students to do those things. So that's a little bit about the Q track. So now what we're going to move into talking about is some of the programs that you might hear about coming out of my center. So I try to highlight specifically programs that are targeting my first year students. And then one that you see at the bottom, I'll explain why I included that one in there. But this is a brief sampling of some of the programs that come out of the Q track. So first and foremost, one of the programs that I think is incredible, and it has run for 2 full academic years so far, is our Kinship Collective Mentor Program. So that program matches incoming students who identify within the queer and trans communities with a member of our faculty and staff who also identifies as a member of the communities. And what's wonderful about this mentoring program is it is absolutely your own to make, right? So you are not necessarily required to write me reflection papers about what you are learning through your mentoring experience. I purely am just wanting to help you plug into another resource on campus. All of my mentors have had to apply to be mentors, so they want to be working with first year students in this way and helping you get adjusted to campus. So this can be somebody who, sure, you can go to them and ask them about classes and how to adjust to being a college student and things like that. But you also can just talk to them about superheroes and what movies you're watching. And if you're feeling homesick, you can process that with them. Truly, that's been what the students have enjoyed the most thus far about the program. Is a lot of the feedback I get is, I guess I never recognized that adults actually care about me. And so that's one of my favorite parts about getting to run this program. And then we also have, throughout the academic year, we have a variety of socials for the folks in the program. So you'll have a chance to meet other students, faculty, and staff involved with it. The next one is our queer and trans themed community. So this is a residential hall located directly in Maple Hall, actually right next door to where my office is. That is, again, it is a unit within Maple Hall. So about 18 to 22 students who identify within the queer and trans communities. So that unit would be gender inclusive. So you would not necessarily be assigned to a roommate by gender. You could choose to select by gender, but you are not forced to select by gender for a roommate in this unit. And I got to be a part of selecting the RA for this community. So that person works with me as well to help program for you all. This gives you a chance to engage in different types of leadership opportunities. It also helps you plug into different off-campus partners that we have, which I'll talk about in a few minutes who some of those folks are, just to engage in different community service opportunities. So one of my biggest things that I want any of the students that are working with me to recognize is I want to help each one of you be the person that you needed when you were 14, right? As queer and trans folks, we recognize that the world isn't always made to accept us, but we can help create that better world, that better vision. So that's something that we work to do quite a bit. The picture that I have on the screen now actually is members of both our first year queer and trans themed community and our upper class queer and trans themed community. So a few years ago now, because everybody is growing up so fast and that's wild to me, students that were members of my first year themed community were like, hey Gabby, we really love living with one another and we kind of don't want to stop, so can we do this next year again? And we worked with Residence Life to make that happen again for our upperclassmen. So that's something that, again, if you love the living opportunity, you can do that. And then 2 students that work for me directly are the coordinators of these themed communities. So also work with the RAs to help plan different types of programming, which is really wonderful. The next thing that we have is our Trans Affinity Group. So again, this is a group of trans students who meet once a week, and just as pure and simple as it is, sometimes there's a planned activity, maybe things like make your own bath bomb or let's color or snack time or whatever the case may be. And sometimes it's just coming together just to sit and relax and not really talk to one another much. It's just a way for trans students on campus who maybe don't necessarily have the time to devote to a club or an organization, let's say, or don't have the time to devote to like a part-time job. It gives you the chance to just meet other trans folks, and make sure that you find your own community, which I think is really wonderful. The safe zone trainings that happen on campus, I like to include this just because I like to let our queer and trans folks know that there is work happening tirelessly to ensure that the campus climate is changing to be even better and even more inclusive of our queer and trans students. So I was just running the numbers today of how many trainings I facilitated for this past spring semester, and over 300 students, faculty, and staff went through some form of a safe zone training just this semester alone. So folks are actively seeking out ways to better their own knowledge about queer and trans folks and about how to be a better advocate for these communities, which I think is just truly amazing. One of my favorite parts about working for Roger Williams, I've been working for the university for 3 years now, is even folks that might admit, okay, my knowledge is not where it needs to be, but I know it's not where it needs to be, and I want to change that. That is what I have found at Roger Williams quite a bit, is folks are absolutely dedicated to making themselves better people and growing, and that's all I could really hope for, honestly. And our Safe Zone programs and how popular they are, quite a testament to that. The advocacy speaker series are the semesterly programs that come out of my office. So the programming that I choose to do from the Q track is I like to make it educational based, just by helping to introduce students to different off-campus agencies and how they are helping to support the queer and trans communities. The reason why my programs take a more educational base is there is a student programming group that I'll talk about in a few minutes that focuses on more of the community building base. And then last but certainly not least, an event that's up here that happens once a year that I like to include, because if you come to Roger and you finish your time with us, you will have the chance to participate in this, is Lavender graduation. So every May, we host a Lavender graduation ceremony for those queer and trans students who are graduating, and we honor them and we celebrate them, and they get a lavender cord that they're able to wear on commencement day. They're able to choose somebody they love to share a few words about them. And it's truly my favorite event to host. It's so beautiful, and it's a wonderful celebration of everything the students have accomplished throughout their time at the university. So next, and probably one of the most exciting parts of my work, is getting to work with different groups, different student groups in particular. So different types of student involvement and leadership opportunities. So one of our student organizations on campus, I believe there's currently 8 student organizations. Yep, 8. One of them is the Sexuality and Gender Alliance, or SAGA. These are some members of SAGA on the screen right now, standing next to trans activist Alok B. Menon. If you all are not familiar with Alok's work, I highly recommend you go follow them on Instagram immediately after this session. They are such a powerful human being. The Sexuality and Gender Alliance, they are one of our most active student organizations on campus, and they create programming for the queer and trans community, but also for the wider campus, right? So some of the events that they host might be smaller and for the community itself. So an event that they've done this past year was something called Coming Out to Fairy Lights, where they sat in a dim lit room with one another, and folks got to share what their coming out experience was, but more so what their coming out experience was to their own selves, right? So sharing that story about, when did I first recognize that I was trans or that I was queer, and what was that moment like for me? So they got to do that together as a group. And then examples of some of the campus-wide programming that we do. Twice a year, we host a drag bingo event where we raise proceeds from one of our most prominent off-campus partner, which is Age Project Rhode Island. Age Project Rhode Island, we work very closely with them to provide all different types of education for our campus. We do all different types of fundraising opportunities for the community health clinics that they help to run in our community, which is really wonderful and lovely. And The bingo event is just an utter blast. The president and his wife were there this year, and they were front row, and they absolutely adored it. It couldn't have been more fun. Another one of our student clubs is called Fem Society. So this is a student club that is devoted to intersectional feminism. So one of the biggest campaigns that they launched in the 2018-2019 student or academic year, I should say, is getting tampons, free menstrual hygiene products, I should say, not just tampons, free menstrual hygiene products in every single bathroom on campus. So not just women's rooms, but all of our gender neutral bathrooms and our men's restrooms as well, because it's not just women who have menstrual cycles. So that was a campaign that they took on and that they were successful with, which was really incredible. Some of the other leadership opportunities we have through my office are, as you see here, the queer and trans themed community coordinators, and I briefly touched on those students. This past year, I worked with 2 students who got to plan programming events. So one of our off-campus partners that we work with is an agency called Youth Pride Incorporated. These students worked with that agency to host a haunted house and a mixer on Halloween for a group of queer and trans high schoolers in Providence. So they actually had like over 1,000 students come through their haunted house on Halloween, which was awesome. It was so much fun to see. So that's just like a brief example of some of the work that these folks get to do. And then the tag coordinator. So I allow a student to run our trans affinity group, right? So again, this is a student that works directly with me, but I allow that student to plan the programming that happens within tag. So it's another great leadership development opportunity. And then last, but certainly not least, as I've kind of touched upon throughout my conversation thus far, is some of our off-campus partners, right? So one of the things that's most fun about being a queer and trans person is our community is awesome. Our community is creative and resilient and really, really, really smart and just so beautiful. And to think that I myself, one person, could provide everything that every single queer and trans person at Roger Williams University could ever need is silly to think about. So I work really closely with a whole host of off-campus partners to first and foremost ensure that I am up to date and aware of everything that is happening within my own communities to make sure that I am meeting the needs of my people, and then also to make sure that our students have access to what they need. So some example, I've talked about some of our off-campus partners, but some additional examples are Thunder Mist Health Center. So this is it's actually a nationally renowned healthcare center, and it's a trans health clinic. And they do an incredible job providing hormone replacement therapy at low cost to folks. And it's very, very accessible. I work directly with the director of their trans health clinic. So we've got great partnerships there. We've also got ZenCare, which is a mental health advocacy agency that helps folks of either a minority identity or folks of low socioeconomic status get plugged into a therapist. We know that for any person in our country right now, especially, mental health is of a deep concern. As queer or trans people, though, sometimes it can be a little more challenging to find a therapist we feel comfortable with. And so ZenCare helps us minoritized folks find people that are trained to really work with us. Some other examples of agencies that we have partnered with, as I've said, Youth Pride. I talked about AIDS Project Rhode Island, and then we also work directly with the Rhode Island Department of Health to do a lot of training and education. And again, prior to everything happening this spring, in Rhode Island, in Providence, we launched an additional queer and trans exclusive whole healthcare agency. So located directly in Providence, and we were going to be doing a lot of different partnerships with the Department of Health to look into different type of student employment opportunities and helping get that agency up and running. So just a brief example of some of those things. So I've surface level kind of touched on a lot of different information in a relatively short period of time. So at this point, I want you all to feel free to unmute yourselves and ask any and all questions that you might have.
Or if you don't feel comfortable unmuting, you can always ask in the chat whatever your preference is. think you did a perfect job, Gabby.
So also what I would like folks to, and Kyler, if you want to share with any folks, if anybody has questions at any point, you can always feel free to reach out to me directly. So something that I am constantly doing, especially during the summer month, as students are making their college decision and then gearing up, getting ready to come to Roger, all sorts of questions pop into your brain. And I would love to be the person to help you find the answer to that question, whether it's related to queer and trans student life or not.
So we can definitely provide Gabby's contact information in the chat, and we'll email it to you afterwards. And again, this presentation will be live on the website.
Yeah.
We also have a current student community on our Wiser platform where you can potentially connect with a bunch of different current staff or faculty members in the Intercultural Center community, I believe is the best one. Is that correct, Gabby, to your knowledge?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So current students there if you have any questions. Marina in the chat just asked, how do I get involved in this community? I don't even know where to begin. What would you say?
So one of the easiest ways to get involved in this community is, first and foremost, just dropping me an email whenever you want to. So even if you just say, hi, I want to be involved, that is a really quick and easy way, right? So even let's say if you don't feel ready to sign up for something like the Kinship Collective Mentor Program. So you will not miss the opportunity to sign up for that program after your orientation sessions end. So orientation finishes up around the last week of June. The entire first year class will start receiving messages about how to sign up for that program. And it's a very simple Google form. But let's say if you're not ready to sign up for a mentoring program like that, you can just email me. And what we can do is I can help introduce you just to some current students on campus, if that's where you're at currently, right? Like if you're not ready to join Saga, you don't have to join Saga right away. I can help introduce you to students until you are ready to get as involved as you might like to be.
Any other questions? Carol, do you have any questions you want to ask in the chat? No worries if not. Zoila, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself to Carol Marin, just identify yourself as a secondary resource.
Sure. Sure. Hi, I'm Zoila, and I'm the Director of Institutional Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And I work with Gabby in the Intercultural Center and the Q track. And we're just so excited to have you join us. We can't wait to see you in the fall. So I'm just here basically for moral, non-video support for all of you. If any questions come up, I'm here.
Thanks, Zoila.
Thank you so much, Zoila.
Yeah.
And Carol just confirmed that she doesn't have any questions. So do you have any last words, Gabby, or anything you want to leave the students with, and then we'll wrap up?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, just echoing Zoila and my own excitement about welcoming you all to campus. So one of the things that I have missed most this semester, even though I'm still getting the connection with my students virtually, is being with my students in the Q track in real time is what keeps me going. So I cannot wait to welcome you all to campus. I'm so excited to do so. But as I just said a few moments ago, right, your involvement with the Q track can be as much or as little as you might want it to be. So you are still a loved and valued member of the Q track, even if your involvement is stopping by once a week, once every other week to grab a cup of tea and say a quick hello, right? You are still going to be a valued member of this community. So take it at your own pace, but don't hesitate to stop by and let me know what you need, and I'll help in whatever way that I can.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gabby. Carol, Marina, and your loved one, thank you so much for attending. We're so glad they're able to join us. Obviously, we wish this was in person, on campus. If you have any questions, reach out to Gabby. I put my contact information in the chat as well. But we hope to see you this fall and wish you the best of luck in your process.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.